And do we want to go ahead and get started? Should we give it a minute or two for people to log on? I'm fine either way.
I think we're expecting a few more to trickle in.
Yeah, let's wait a
minute or
second.
two.
Sure. Awesome. It looks like we've got about 10 or so logged in. 11.
Looking good, looking good.
Yay. I know everyone's like, oh no, I need to be on. Should we get started, you think?
Sounds good.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this presentation today. My name is Becky Gillespie, and I'm a wellness consultant and health educator from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And today I am presenting Address Your Stress. And I really love to kind of get this chat feature going so that we can interact with each other. Feel free throughout this session to chime in and ask questions, or we'd love for you to share experiences, anything that you do to really help your stress. I think we can really learn from each other. And what we'll talk about a lot today is that everyone's a little bit different in how they deal with stress. And also the things that really work for them. So we're going to really cover some good material. But before we get started, I just wanted to ask a question. How many of you have experienced an increased amount of stress in the last couple years? And if you want to share maybe some of the top stressors in that chat feature that you have come across in the past couple years. I feel like that's a silly question. I think most of us have experienced some stress, absolutely increased different challenges that we have, had to endure in the past couple years. So I know for me, one of my biggest stressors has just been adjusting to sort of this new work environment. I think for a lot of us, we are either having to work, at first it was working completely remote, and then maybe now I'm just getting back into traveling again and that type of thing. But at first it felt kind of nice to be at home all the time. But then it was like, how do I balance my work and family and Alma put in there, my son's schooling, absolutely. Having kids at home and trying to figure out, I sort of come up with a good plan to take care of my health and wellness and all of that, even when I was traveling. But everything shifted. I had to really kind of determine what was going to work for me. And then I will tell you that in the past month or so, I've had a lot of interesting stressors that have happened to me. One, and we're going to talk about the different types of stressors and what some of them can be considered really, really good stress, and some of them can be bad stress and stress that that's unexpected. But I actually have a stepdaughter that was moving out. So we're going to be empty nesters, but in that same time frame, we had some sickness in my family, and my husband's mother passed away. And then the weekend after that, we came home on a Monday, and we got hit by a tornado in I live in Round Rock, Texas. And so our neighborhood got hit by a tornado. So I'm not saying all this to be like, if you think you know stress, I've got some stress. It has been stressful, but I also have really been trying to use some techniques to manage all of this stress. And I think that some interesting things have come out of like the tornado, and connecting to my community, and just so thankful to be happy, to be healthy. And yes, we have some repairs to do, but I know that a lot of us have really been experiencing some crazy things in the past couple years. So I'm really hoping to be able to not only share about how stress affects us, both mind and body, but also really to emphasize towards the end of this presentation, give you some good techniques to deal with stress and also some resources. So again, please feel free to chime in throughout, and put any questions that you might have in the chat feature. So let's move forward here. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what is stress. And it really is a mental and physical and emotional reaction to experiences and that result in the demands of your life. So typically people feel significant stress when they believe they can't handle the demands of what is put upon them, right? And people will feel less stress when they have the time, experience, and resources to manage a situation. And again, I think that stress is really coming to the forefront for all of us. That is something that, just like anything else, we have to have a little bit of a plan to help deal with that. So we'll definitely talk about that today. So there is both positive or good stress and bad stress. So let's talk about good stress. So good stress can actually provide extra momentum and boost your productivity. It can make your life enjoyable and interesting, right? It in the short term, it can really provide some pleasant and beneficial things to make us physically and mentally more efficient. It can help motivate us. It can help with our development, growth, and change. So in the chat feature, what are well, the examples are up here. So the examples of some of your good stresses are like buying a new home, right? And having a child, getting married, moving. But they also can be big stressors, and both positive and negative, but most of the time are thought of as positive stress. For me, again, having my stepdaughter move out was a positive stress, I think, for all of us, because we were ready, right? And, you know, we're going to miss her and all of that, but it opened up more space for us. And so we were pretty excited, and she was very excited to move out on her own. So again, some things can be positive, some things can feel more negative. So with negative stress, these are the stresses that make you feel more anxious and irritable, and they can cause that type of pressure, both external or self-imposed. It can cause physiological and psychological issues, which we'll talk more about. But the bad stress doesn't fade, and it kind of can build day after day and become chronic or harmful. And so again, that happens when the stress is perceived as outside our coping abilities. It can impair our functioning, it drains our energy, it can lead to mental and physical problems, and we'll talk about specifics in a minute. But some examples of that are, death of a loved one, divorce, illness, job or financial issues. A lot of people are really experiencing some loneliness through COVID, and it's nice to see that everybody now is starting to get back out into the community and connect with each other. I know that again, my neighborhood was hit by a tornado, and everybody came outside afterwards, and it was amazing to see my community come together, and we all have been helping each other clean things up, and we're all going to help each other with building fences and doing the things that we need to do to get us back and thriving in this community. So it felt really good during a time that we had some loss to be able to get out there and really work with our community and have that support system. So we'll talk about that a lot today as well. So I've got a pop quiz for you. So in that chat feature, is it true or false that everyone responds to stress in the same way? True or false? False. Very false. Very good. Very good. Yes. And I think we used to think that everybody responded to stress in the same way. And it's now known that the way that we perceive our stress and the degree of arousal that it produces is really specific to the individual and to what's going on. And we're stressed when we perceive a situation as dangerous, difficult, or painful, and that we don't have that ability to cope. So different people handle situations differently and view situations differently. Just as an example, I use this sometimes. I know that we're not there together in a room, but if we were all in a room together and all of a sudden a snake slithered through, I ask this question a lot. How many of you would be scared and run away? Or how many of you would be like, oh, I want to check out and see what that is? And whenever I ask that question, there is always people in the audience that would say, I love snakes. I would go right up there, right? Not me, not me. I would be running the other direction. So again, it's all about your perception. All right, so let's talk more about that stress response. I think you've heard this before, maybe that fight or flight response. It was really described by a Harvard professor in the early part of the 19th century. And he described it as a process where the body is shifted into an aroused state and your heart speeds up, you breathe faster, your blood pressure increases, and you get this burst of energy, right? And that it was essential back in the day when humans were faced with physical stress, like in the caveman days when you come out of your cave and you're met by like a saber-toothed tiger, you had to decide if you were going to run or if you were going to fight and try to utilize that animal as food or fur. So those are the types of stress responses that are naturally ingrained in us. And the stressors we face today are more likely to be psychological and interpersonal rather than physical, but it can still lead to the same responses. And that's what we're going to really focus on today, and to recognize this stress response throughout your day. I was not aware until I really started paying attention to my body's reactions that I was even under stress during certain times. And yes, you can feel this fight or flight. Like when we found out about the tornado, we're in our living room. We get the warning on our phones. We turn on the TV, and all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, a tornado just hit at Kalahari by our house. We open the door and we can see it coming towards us. Our Ring doorbell camera actually caught right before our tree was uprooted and crashed into the neighbor's house. So of course I was feeling those stress responses right there and very intensely. But I also recognize that there's sometimes in my life that I'm having that response when I don't need to be fleeing. But it's just that I'm feeling that much response from my body. So it's very interesting. And did you know that according to, I did not know this, but according to the American Institute of Stress, it's been estimated that 75 to 90% of all visits to primary care physicians are for stress related problems. Totally makes sense to me, especially right now. And we know that the body can be impacted from stress. Stress related problems can come in the form of headaches, gastrointestinal disorders, ulcers, musculoskeletal issues like muscle tension. We're going to talk a lot more about the physical effects of stress, but those are just some of them that you can be aware of. And your primary care physician really is your first touch point to help you with stress related issues. So that's why it's really good for us to connect. Some of what's going on with our body might absolutely be stress related. So it's great that you're on this call today so that you can start to really have a better plan for your stress. All right. And then let's talk about what causes our stress. There's both these internal stressors. So um, really the potential causes of stresses are numerous, right? And they're highly individual, like we talked about. What you consider to be stressful depends on your personality, your general outlook on life, your problem solving abilities, your social support. Again, something that is stressful for you may not phase someone else, or they may even enjoy it, right? The pressure and demands that cause stress are known as stressors. We usually, again, think of stressors as being negative, such as an exhausting work schedule or a rocky relationship, but anything that forces us to adjust can be a stressor, and it includes those positive events. And we need to remember while major life changes are very stressful, they're also relatively rare. After all, it's not every day that you file for divorce or a tornado hits your community, but really the things that you deal with on a daily basis, like family members and battling traffic and worrying about your finances, those small upsets occur so regularly that they end up affecting us the most. So these are really kind of common internal stressors, and those are the ones that are self-induced, the feelings that pop into your head and cause you unrest. So that is the examples here, like fears, just being afraid of flying or heights, but even more subtle, like, I know for me, I have some social anxiety. So participating in a discussion with a group of strangers, those kinds of things can definitely be stressors. Uncertainty or worries. And I know a lot of us have had more of that in the past couple years, from wondering, how is the office going to be restructured? What's my work life going to look like? Those kinds of things. The other thing to think about is having a pessimistic attitude. I've really had to shift my mindset, because for a while there, I was just like, oh my gosh, everything just seems so stressful. And I really had kind of this negative view of the world. And that really can create an unpleasant environment for you to live. So I've really been trying to think about all the things that I'm truly grateful for as well. And then those unrealistic expectations or beliefs, perfectionism or trying to control things can definitely lead to unnecessary high stress levels. Overscheduling and not planning ahead. Even just last night, I realized I had just booked my day too much and I was really stressed out, and I was like, I know I'm going to have a hard time sleeping because I don't feel like I'm prepared for a meeting in the morning. And then I realized, you know what? I can reschedule this meeting and move it for a couple days, and it might even be better for the other person I'm meeting with. And sure enough, it was. So I've really been trying to be not overschedule myself right now too. And then you do have those external stressors, okay? And those are the things that we've talked about that really you don't have a whole lot of control over. And some of them you do, some of them you probably don't. So those major life changes, a new marriage, a planned pregnancy, and all of that, those are stressors that you have more of a control over. But your environment, sometimes you don't have control over your environment. Noise disturbances, a, a dog barking, excessive light, unsafe neighborhoods, weather, all of those, unpredictable events. Having the mother-in-law come and visit uninvited, just any of those things that you're not planned for. And then family and relationships, I think those can cause a lot of stressors. And we love our family and we love our friends, but we've also, I've had to spend 2.5 years. Both my husband and I have been working from home, and so did my stepdaughter. So we're starting to really grind on each other. So just that on a regular basis. All right. And then you've got your workplace stressors, which obviously we all know that can bring about stress for us, an increased workload and demand. Also through this pandemic, I've seen a shift in, even throughout the agencies and stuff, some people leaving. And so, having more workload because you're a little bit more short staffed can be stressful. Personality conflicts are always going to happen. I was thinking too how different it's been being more virtual and on a lot of these Zoom calls, and some people really having to learn about how to utilize these, and I get that sometimes people are frustrated because they're so tech savvy that they're like, oh, that person's not on mute and they're not doing this and they're not doing that. And I think we are becoming more understanding that we're all in this together, but those personality conflicts can still come out even in a virtual space. Lengthy commutes, that kind of shifted for me and it went away. And then all of a sudden I realized I'm going to be having to travel again and having to think about that. But on a regular basis, just commuting back and forth from work, right? And then, like I said before, work-life balance. I think that right now is especially prevalent in the workplace. So another, did you know that there's a statistic from the American Institute of Stress that states nearly 1 million Americans miss work every day due to stress-related factors. 1 million. And stress is estimated to be more than responsible for more than half of the 550,000 workdays lost to absences annually. Half of that is stress related. And that, of course, costs the United States workforce over $300 billion annually in absenteeism, diminished productivity, employee turnover, all of those things, right? So just a very interesting statistic to be aware of. But I was going to say that just so happy that your agency or your institute here at Texas State is offering these types of programs, because that's what we're finding really makes a big difference with organizations. So let's talk about the impact of stress on the mind and body a little bit more. So when we're inundated by a sequence of stressful situations, our bodies don't have time to adjust and again can become incapable of making decisions necessary to deal with stress in a healthy manner. So this is referred to as episodic stress. And over time, this unrelieved stress can result in increased heart rate, increased respiration, increased blood pressure, which in turn will put undue stress on bodily organs such as the heart and the lungs. So, if we're unable to resolve these problems, we can develop significant health problems like high blood pressure, stroke, other illnesses. So, it's really important. I actually took my health assessment on Well on Target. I guess it was about 6 months ago, and it definitely indicated that I was stressed out. I also found out that my blood pressure was a little bit high, so it's definitely affecting me. So it was something that it was cool on Well on Target because it gave me specific things I could do. There's programs and there was coaching that I utilized. We'll talk more about those resources, but it really helped me to manage some of my stress. But emotionally, stress can really burn us out, and that is a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. And it really occurs when you feel overwhelmed and unable to meet the constant demands. Burnout can obviously reduce your productivity. It zaps your energy. It leaves you feeling hopeless, cynical, resentful. And one of the most concerning issues with burnout is often there's a detachment from the things that mean the most to us, like your family, your loved ones, and support. So that detachment is sometimes a coping mechanism. So we're going to talk about healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms in a bit. So long-term stress can become chronic stress and may lead to these feelings of hopelessness, anxiety and depression. All right. And then I'm not going to go into everything on here, but you can see all the different things here that the chronic symptoms of stress. And this was really eye-opening to me because it's obvious that stress can affect almost every part of your body, right? And I really had to come to grips with the fact that I was having some of these symptoms that I wasn't relating to the fact that I was just stressed out. So I definitely get some headaches. I get some digestive issues. I get very tired. There's some depression in there. So I really can relate to a lot of these symptoms of stress. And I'd be interested to know with you all, if you want to share in the chat feature, what are some of the symptoms that you get that right away that you're stressed out, and there might even be some that aren't on here. It's very interesting when you start thinking about that. So if you want to throw that in the chat feature, that would be awesome. Okay, so let's talk about now coping with stress. We've talked about all of the things that can happen, but there are things that you can do to cope. But I first want to talk about the left-hand side here, which are the negative coping mechanisms. So you've got your negative coping mechanisms are like denial, right? Drinking and using drugs or alcohol to cope, blaming other people. We pretend like nothing's wrong, is another one. Just really denying. Indulging in other things like staying up late, sleeping in, buying on impulse. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how I utilized Amazon as my friend there for a while, and realized I was doing way too much of that. And it was obvious at night when I was most stressed out, I started shopping, right? And I don't know if any of you can relate to that. but just worrying, you're fretting over things, you're thinking about the worst, procrastinating, just ignoring it in hopes that it goes away, right? Acting violently towards others, and I won't, it just was interesting that whole Will Smith thing, I think, blew up. And I think that we've seen a lot of people just have a hard time controlling their anger, and acting in ways that aren't, typically normal for them. Emotional eating. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. I'm absolutely an emotional eater. And then withdrawing from people. It's absolutely one of my negative coping mechanisms that I've really made an effort to change and get a support system around me, and it's really helped. So I'm not saying that these negative coping mechanisms, it's not like you're intentionally doing that, but just recognize that these coping mechanisms aren't going to be the best for you when you're coping with stress. Some better ways to cope are these positive coping mechanisms, and we're going to talk about some of these in more detail. But breathing and meditation, absolutely, one of my go-to is just taking some deep breaths or doing 5 or 10 minutes of a meditation. I actually do some meditation before I go to bed, because that's, for some reason, when I get the most anxious and I have a hard time sleeping. So I've added that to my routine. Getaways, spending time alone, taking some time off, definitely trying to do that. With my life now is, for a long time it felt like we couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. So now just even little staycations or having something to look forward to can be really great. And socializing with your friends and family. Music, I absolutely love music. I utilize it to help me work out, to just sometimes just throwing on some music to sort of block out the negativity in my mind. I also love music. I live in the Austin area, so I love utilizing that as a getaway to go listen to some live music. But that's a big part of my stress relief. My husband also plays guitar and sings, and that's part of why he's my husband, I tell him. But I have a little stage set up for him, and I just love it. I love to utilize music as a stress reliever. Spending time with your pets, another big one for me. I have two adorable but very stubborn French bulldogs, and they are my world. Love them, and they really, anytime I'm stressed out, I just cuddle up with them, and it helps. Watching a comedy or laughter. I love the memes. I really don't do a lot of social media unless it's funny, or I'm posting about my pets or my family or my friends. So I love laughter. Volunteering, this wasn't really volunteering, but when the tornado hit my community here, it, like I said, it felt so fantastic for everybody to come together. My husband and I, by the end of Tuesday, we were covered with dirt and soot and scratches and bruises from helping. He was out there chainsawing and helping people get their fences and their trees, all the stuff put on the corner so that they could pick it up. I mean, just we were exhausted, but we also felt fantastic that we had such a fantastic support system. Sherry just added in here that she loves Headspace, the app. Absolutely love Headspace. There's also Calm. Those meditation apps are just a fantastic resource. And then exercising. My degree's in exercise science. And really, I got into the industry because when I was younger, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety and depression, and fitness helped me get through. And I realized it was going to be a part of my life because it helped me with those endorphins. I need those endorphins every day to help me through. So those are some positive coping mechanisms. And I kind of came up with this scenario that so I don't remember who said this, but if you are experiencing stress and anxiety and you feel like you're in a hole, um, the the one thing you don't want to do is keep digging, right? If you keep digging, you're never going to get out of there. And I picture the negative coping mechanisms as digging. You're digging yourself in deeper. These positive coping mechanisms are actually adding dirt or sand or whatever to your hole so that you can get out. And I really kind of like that analogy. So if you want to get out of that hole, quit digging, quit using those negative coping mechanisms as much as possible. But I also don't want you to get down on yourself if you realize most of my mechanisms are negative, right? You can just one at a time take one of those negative coping mechanisms and choose a positive one and replace that and start doing that. And you're going to find that you'll get really some momentum from it. So I hope that helps. All right. And then how to identify your stress triggers. We're going to talk about journaling here. And one of the best ways to cope with stress is to first identify what it is that you're stressed about, what level it is in your life. Okay. And, really identifying those triggers. Some of the stresses are going to be really obvious to you if you start jotting them down, but some of them might be small daily hassles that are just always a little bit on your mind. And it might just be your long commute or your trouble finding childcare. All of those little small things can be persistent. So by making a list and sort of prioritizing them by journaling can make a big difference. You can note which events and situations you have negative responses. So whether it's something makes you really angry. I know for me, man, driving has always been a big stressor of mine. And lately I've finally been like, I can't control this. And I know that I'm probably going to look over and see someone on their cell phone, or I have to be really aware when I'm driving. But I also started to just throw on my favorite music or put on a podcast or something that I can listen to and not get so stressed out about what I can't control, and try to enjoy my drive time and take it in as this is part of my meditation for the day. So sort of switching your idea of it. But with that journal, you can also record the time and day, give a brief description of the situation, include a stress rating from 1 to 5, and just pay particular attention to those that you rate very high. And sometimes by keeping these stress journals, you're going to see solutions to problems that have been bothering you. And I really notice that anytime that you start to, when you're journaling, you're making yourself more mindful, right? And so say for instance, you realize from journaling that one of your triggers or your stressors is that your children are upsetting you at certain times of day. Then maybe you go, oh, well, okay, what's a solution to this? You can have a family conference and discuss what can be done differently so that everybody knows and you communicate about it. So little things like that, identifying your stress triggers, identifying what's really going on with you, and then coming up with some small solutions. Because we always need a plan, right? To make sure that we can move forward and get past some of these things. All right, mood, food, and stress. How many of you are a stress eater? I definitely am. And, our mood and stress levels are tightly connected to the food that we eat. So, emotional eaters like myself sometimes eat too much food and make unhealthy food choices. Definitely. When you're stressed out, oftentimes you want those those comfort foods, and they can provide sort of that short-term fix to a stressful situation. But as we know, it can lead to an unhealthy long-term habit of eating. So again, I'm all about balance. I'm all about have a hamburger if you need a hamburger, but we can actually get ourselves into a routine of using food as our stress relief. And again, that's one of those sort of negative coping mechanisms. For some people, they don't eat, they're not hungry at all. And that can also, eating too little, can deplete your energy and decrease your ability to focus. So there's both ranges there. All right. So here's some techniques. I love all of these. First is just to simply take a time out. I think that oftentimes we think to manage our stress, we've got to do a yoga class, or we've got to, do a meditation for 30 minutes. And honestly, what's helped me the most is to do these little timeouts where you basically step away from whatever's stressing you out. Here at the house, I like to like go out back and just experience some fresh air, or maybe go for a short walk, but just take a few minutes away and step away from the situation. Okay. And it's just a simple thing to do when you're really stressed out. Something that takes a little bit longer, but you can do it in a shorter version as well, is progressive muscle relaxation. And there's tons of YouTube videos about progressive muscle relaxation, but it's basically just focusing on one muscle group at a time and tensing up that muscle group and then relaxing. I know for me, I just tend to be really tense through my upper back, my lower back, my hips. So by tensing up some of those muscles and then really forcing them to relax and take some deep breathing while you're doing it, you can do that from head to toe and it feels fantastic. Because once you're mindful, oh my gosh, I didn't realize my muscles were so tight and stressed out, and you get your body to relax a little bit, it can also calm your mind, which is super cool. So again, I'm not going to go through a whole relaxation with you, but progressive muscle relaxation, you can look that up, and there's lots of videos related to that you can just follow right through with them. Thought stopping. This one again is kind of related to timeout, and it's just whenever you feel yourself stressed out, and I have to be really aware, we'll talk more about self-talk, that I've got this negative emotion going on. And what I try to do is just immediately say, stop my thoughts. And I think of it as sort of a brick wall that I'm not allowing those negative thoughts to continue. And I try to either change my whole idea about what I'm thinking, or like I said before, take that time out and just go, okay, I'm going to think about this when I'm a little bit calmer. But I think that we can be inundated with a lot of negative self-talk. So just using some mental images of, again, pushing a stop button, or like I said, mine is that brick wall. I need to just stop those negative thoughts and try to think about some more positive things. I also like to use gratitude in those situations too, and just be like, okay, what am I thankful for right now? Because that can really help as well. And then lastly, breathing. And this is so simple, and it really is my go-to. If I do a timeout, if I do a thought stopping, I generally then take some big, deep breaths. If you watch a baby breathing, their abdomens expand when they breathe in and out. And as adults, we forget to breathe. We get so stressed out. We breathe really shallow. And again, that can cause more of our body to get tense, and that affects our mind. So if we can relax Take some deep breaths in through your nose, really fill up your belly and your lungs, and then blow all that negativity out and do even 5 deep breaths when you're stressed out. I promise you that it can make a huge difference. I like to even start some of my meetings with people doing that, especially if we're going to talk about something stressful or after a meeting. But whenever you feel like you need a moment, take some deep breaths. And these secrets are practice them several times a week. You do have to practice because it's not your go-to. When you practice, it becomes more of a habit. Just remember to use them and don't give up on these techniques too soon. Just because you don't feel it right at first, try it a few times because it takes a while for you to really calm your body and your mind through these techniques. All right. Look at time here. Okay, looks like we're good. So some other tips to manage stress, manage your time better. Again, that was something that I've been really trying to do. I'm recognizing that especially when I'm under a lot of stress, I need to not overbook myself. So think about your priorities, say no once in a while, and make sure that you've got time for yourself as well, and take that time to relax. Put it on your schedule, okay? Whether it's you just put lunch or whatever it is that you need to do, I really think it's important every hour or so to check yourself and see where you are with your stress levels and stretch or move around. Anything that you need to do. Rebecca, no problem. See, you're overscheduled today. I like that you're gonna you're gonna go and go to another meeting. Absolutely. And then exercise, of course. I think that's always great. And just remember, you don't have to do a CrossFit workout or anything too intense. Even going and walking for a few minutes, they've found that 5 to 10 minutes of movement can actually be as beneficial as 45 minutes of activity in managing stress. So get out there and move. Reframe your thoughts. It's what we've talked about before. If you're always seeing negative, pay attention to that and try to reframe your thoughts into a positive. And think about something funny or fun or something you are grateful for. I love the whole gratitude. Every day now, I'm trying to wake up and think about all the things I'm grateful for because there's a ton of them. And organize your clutter. I've been doing that as well, cleaning out my closets. When you get your life space in order, I do also need to clean off my desk, I can tell right now, because I'm a little stressed from that, but just those kinds of things can make a big difference. I talked about laughter, absolutely, and focus on what matters. Again, that gratitude. Excuse me, sneezing there. Ooh, Sherry, I love this. I love this. She said, make a trash journal. Write down all the negative thoughts down and then rip it up or burn it or shred it. I absolutely love that. Great idea. And I will remember that as a technique. I think we should all do that. All right. And then as we're ending here, here's just when you really want to seek some professional help. Obviously, if stress is affecting your life, family, health, your sleep, you're engaging in a lot of unhealthy habits, you have feelings and thoughts that are really hard to talk about. If you get angry or frustrated often, if you have a sense of hopelessness, if you're depressed, sad, or tearful, or feel that life is not worth living, obviously, that's when you want to seek professional help. We really have, with my company, a great EAP. I'm sure that you have that as well, employee assistance program. So really reach out. That's a really good resource. I have been utilizing them to just talk about some of my feelings about what has been going on. You also have virtual visits through mental health virtual visits if you're a Health Select participant through Doctor on Demand or MD Live. So don't be afraid to seek some help. I think everybody at some point needs to seek help when their life is just overwhelming. So don't be afraid to do that. And then just some Blue Cross resources. So if you're a Health Select participant, you do have that Well on Target portal where you can go in and take your health assessment. There's also self-management program for managing stress. There is coaching. There's free coaching on Well on Target. You can communicate with your coach either telephonically or through a messaging system on a portal, on the portal there. And I utilized a coach for stress management, and you can use those coaches as long as you want, as often as you want, and they can just help you find some techniques that will work for you. You can also just use the stress tracker on Well on Target as well to just be mindful about your stress levels. Also, of course, the fitness program, you've got a discounted membership program. And again, I just really think that fitness is a great way to help with stress. They also, if there's not a lot of facilities in your area, I know that was an issue before with Texas State, they do have a virtual only option for $10 a month. And I've used that. And there's no enrollment fee. It's $10 a month plus tax, and it gives you access to 3 different platforms with all types of everything from bar to yoga to high intensity interval to Zumba to meditation. There's cooking classes. There's all kinds of things you can do on that virtual platform. So if you're not wanting to go to the gym, or you're not finding gyms in your area, you could still utilize the fitness program with their virtual options. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about these resources. I'm in a second here going to put my email in the chat. And then here lastly are some additional resources: the American Institute of Stress, the National Institute of Mental Health, the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, Alcohol Abuse and Crisis Intervention. So please utilize those resources as needed. And then I am going to, I think that is the end of my presentation. Let me make sure. Yes. So please put any questions that you might have now in the chat feature. And I am going to put my email address in the chat feature. Please email me if you have any questions. And I think we also can definitely share this presentation with you so that you can use it as a resource. The other thing I want to mention is we do have a Fitness Connect community the second Tuesday of every month. And this last one was on stress and fitness, but we talk about a variety of topics, and it's kind of podcast style. So it's real fun and interactive, and it's 15 to 30 minute session. And that's on the ERS wellness calendar. And if you go to that calendar, you're also going to see a ton of great presentations that Lacey Wolf, the health education program administrator for ERS, is scheduling all kinds of great presentations. May is mental health awareness. She's got lots of presentations about stress management on her website. So definitely go to that ERS wellness events calendar. And if you don't know what that is, email me. I'll get you all of this information. Any other questions?
Really quick, I just wanted to mention that I will be sending out a course evaluation to everyone that attended. So if you guys could fill those out and get them done, it's super quick, and it's just helpful for to kind of see what y'all thought about the course.
Yes, absolutely. And any feedback that you have, again, we're always trying to make sure that we include the latest and greatest information. But anything that you think would be helpful for us to include in these types of presentations, for sure, let us know. And I am not seeing any other questions. So I guess we'll close it up. But again, use me as a resource if you need to. Thank you so much for attending. I hope you learned something. I hope it didn't stress you out. And I hope that you guys have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.